Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Now, a lot of you have been asking me to just completely culturally break down Moana as soon as it comes out in theaters. Well, it's out, I saw it, let's talk about it. But before I do, there are 3 things I have to quickly mention. Number 1, this video is completely full of spoilers. From beginning to end, I am literally talking about everything in this movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, close this video down, go watch it, come back, bring this video back up, and let's talk. Number 2, I have to give a big shout out to the Polynesian Multicultural Center in Hawaii. These guys, through their YouTube videos and articles and other kinds of things, man, they've just given me so much information about Polynesian culture, so a big thanks to you guys. Links to their channel in the description, go check them out, they're awesome. Number 3, there are a lot of people going to this movie with the idea that it is all just about Hawaii. It is not about just Hawaii. There are a multitude of Polynesian cultures being represented in this movie. You do have Hawaii, but you also have the New Zealand Maui, you have the Solomon Islands, you have Samoa, you have all kinds of islands and cultures tied to it, so please bear that in mind as we culturally break down this movie. So from the very beginning, this movie covers all kinds of little minute details about Polynesian day-to-day life, and I was really blown away by it. In fact, the very first song, There You Are, just talks about everyday life, and according to my research, it's all completely true, which is amazing. So they say stuff like, nets made from fibers, coconut water sweet, use the leaves to build fires, to cook the meat inside. From everything that I've seen from the Polynesian Multicultural Center and beyond in my research, that's how they do it. And fun fact, the men are the ones that actually cook the food, and even in the movie, the men are cooking the food. So just everything from the very beginning is completely rooted in Polynesian culture. So let's talk about our main character, Moana. I have to be very, very specific. I've had people tell me it is pronounced Moana, not Moana. So I have to be very particular, apparently. But it's interesting because she's going throughout this entire movie just saying, oh, why'd the ocean pick me? Oh, the ocean, you have to pick someone else. Oh, I don't know why the ocean picked me. Girl, the ocean picked you because your name is Ocean. I looked this up in Hawaiian and in Maui. Moana literally means massive, expansive body of water, aka the ocean or the sea. The sea chose you because you were named after it. But then we got Maui, and Maui is a very, very interesting character in this movie from a cultural sense because this is where Disney started taking liberties. Not necessarily in a malicious way like I've seen in other past movies, but there are some things they get right, and then some things they get wrong. Now, one of the very few things they actually get wrong is his origin. In the movie, Maui was born to mortal parents who just threw him out because they just didn't want him anymore, apparently. And that's not quite what happened. See, instead of being abandoned and then picked up by the gods, Maui was actually born of the gods. You had his mother, Taranga, who was the goddess of vegetation, life, and death. And then you had Makeatutara, who was the guardian of the underworld. And believe it or not, Maui was their 5th kid. Now, it is completely true that Maui was technically abandoned, but he was only abandoned because Taranga thought that he was stillborn. When he was born, he was underdeveloped. So he got wrapped up in a truss of her hair and was sent out to the sea. But he wasn't dead, and the ocean knew that. So the ocean spirits took care of him, raised him, and then reintegrated him back into his family. So that's kind of the one thing that this movie gets absolutely wrong when it comes to Maui, but I can understand why, because Maui needs character development, and even if it's completely fabricated, it would make for a boring movie if Maui was just there because reasons. But I will say, everything else that they do with Maui is completely spot on and hilarious. Like, his song, You're Welcome, sung by Dwayne Johnson, great voice by the way, everything that he lists, he actually did. And there were a couple of those that I wanted to highlight specifically. The first one is that Maui discovered fire and presented the way of making fire to humans. Originally, fire could have only been created from lava flows. You stick a stick in the fire, it catches on fire, and then you keep that fire burning as long as you can, and it was this really, really, really big commodity. Maui and his brothers were out collecting food and saw a fire in the distance. It was like, hey, there's some people, let's go get their fire and cook our food. But when they got there weren't any people. In fact, there were 2 mud hens who were called, let's see if I get this right, Ale? I'll put it up on the screen right here. I'm gonna call them mud hens because that's what most of the historical textbooks have said. But it's funny, because apparently these mud hens had the origins of fire, and Maui actually grabbed one by the face and slowly crushed it in his hand, basically torturing the information out of him. And for some reason, this insane bird was toying with Maui, telling him to use the wrong materials or the wrong wood, and just slowly and slowly kept crushing his head, until he finally gave up and told him to use the correct dry 2 pieces of wood to rub together in order to create the smoldering particles that you transfer over to coconut fibers or really dry leaves, just whatever tinder that you have. And it's funny because this bird's red shielded face is said to have come from Maui squeezing that first bird so hard that it left that mark for all eternity on every single one of the ancestors of this particular mudhead. Now granted, Maui did do this in order to benefit humanity with the creation of fire, but the way that he did it was kind of jerkish. Now another thing that this movie talks about is how Maui was able to tether the sun and pull it down and make days last longer. That's a half-truth. The rest of that story is that not only he, but his other brothers got a net, tethered the sun, pulled it down, and then beat it maliciously with a jawbone until the sun promised to last longer through the day. Again, that's something that Maui did for the benefit of mankind, but it was kind of a really jerkish way of doing it. Lastly, and this is the most well-known of Maui's stories, is the creation of the Hawaiian Islands or the New Zealand Islands, depending on who you ask. There's a lot of talk about Maui's fishhook in this movie being the epicenter of all of his power, and like I said before, that's actually not true at all. In fact, the only thing that this hook did was actually make him suck less at fishing. See, Maui was great at a lot of different things, but fishing was not one of them. In fact, his brothers would actually make fun of him because he sucked at fishing so much. So in order to suck less at fishing, Maui was given the Manea Kalani, or fishhook of the heavens, by his father. So with fishhook in hand, he actually convinced his brothers to go back out and fish, and he threw out his line and got a snag. But it wasn't a fish, it was actually this giant chunk of land. Now, he and his brothers paddled for like 3 days to try and pull this suspected fish out of the ocean, but the more they pulled, the more land masses came out of the ocean. Maui saw this but told his brothers not to look back. But one of his brothers did look back, and because of that change in tension, it actually snapped the line and sent the hook spinning off into space, literally, where it became the constellation, and by the way, that's where Maui's hook constellation comes from in the movie. But that's all I could find for the characters, but there's so much more when it comes to the actual concepts of the movie, like the story. Now, in my opinion, you can actually break down this movie story into 2 parts, one of which being Moana trying to figure out what her people used to be as wayfinders, and then the actual returning of the heart of Te Fiti to, well, Te Fiti. And the cool thing is that both of these story plot points have huge aspects of folklore and history behind them. I mean, for one, the concept of Polynesians feeling culturally adrift has been nothing new. In fact, it dates as far back as the 1970s. See, at that time, it was almost 600 years since anyone had ever used the old wayfinding traditions of getting around the different islands. It was almost completely lost to everyone. I mean, you had the majority of people's kids moving to larger islands to find work and education, so the ancient ways were just disappearing. But it was in 1975 where this culture of wayfinding was going to be reborn through a brand new but traditionally made canoe called the hokule'a, or the Happy Star. With the hokule'a and one of the last remaining traditional wayfinders, Maupiailug, the culture of wayfinding was reborn in a voyage from Hawaii to Tahiti on May 1st, 1976, using only the traditional methods. Ever since, the Polynesian Voyaging Society has made sure to keep the culture of wayfinding alive with several other trips, including a global voyage that the hokule'a took in 2014. Finally, you have this movie's second plot, the return of the heart of Te Fiti and the defeat of the lava demon Te Ka. Even though we learn in the beginning that Te Fiti was a kind goddess that created the islands and Te Ka was some wrathful lava demon, the two are one and the same. Also, if you look at the previous forms of Te Ka, she was far more human and female looking. While some people may think this dual identity was created for a simple happy ending, it is anything but. Te Fiti/Te Ka actually mirrors one of the most important goddesses in Polynesian polytheism, Pele, goddess of volcanoes, wind, lightning, and the creator of the known islands. And while many revere and respect her as a provider, she is someone not to be taken lightly, because she's also known for being very spiteful, jealous, and wrathful against other deities and families. Seriously, check out the sledding story of Pele and her polar opposite Poliahu, goddess of snow and compassion. But stealing from her will incur similar wrath. By taking naturally formed things like lava rocks or the fiberglass known as Pele's hair, you incur a terrible curse on your home. No lie, Over the decades, people have mailed back lava rocks, Pele's hair, and even sand that was taken from Hawaii. And the whole plot of this movie completely revolves around this concept. When Maui removed the heart of Te Fiti so humans could have the power of creation, he unleashed a curse on all of Polynesia. The darkness that the movie spoke of was the curse, Maui used those words exactly, of Te Fiti, who then became the wrathful and destructive Te Ka, much like Pele. It wasn't the disappearing of the land, but the wrath of its creator who had been robbed. And that's just something I love about this movie so very much. There's so much underlying culture in it. So in my final analysis, definitely go see this movie. Disney's kind of messed up on a cultural level when it comes to some of its past entries, but Moana, God, it just nails it straight at home. And if you're hungry for more cultural analysis in movies and games, click those annotations and links in the description to learn how even popular media can teach us about the world that we live in. And if you like this video, be sure to subscribe by clicking my icon at the bottom of the screen to never miss out on my newest cultural videos. But until next time everyone, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.